Greetings, math fans. All right, so today is just a little bit different than what we've done in the past several days. Okay, we've always, for the past few days, we've been doing factoring, right? We've been doing difference of two squares, sum and difference of two cubes, and then we mixed it up, right? So I had you guys factor out a greatest common factor first, and then you had to do maybe a difference of squares or the X method, right? Slide and divide. So what we're going to do now is something called solving. So let's write this out as so solving. And there's just one additional step. So basically what you're doing here first, let me just show you what the problem would look like if I give you a problem. Okay, so if I said it was x squared minus 2x minus 15. So the only difference now is it's going to look like this, equals 0. Okay, so it's going to have an equal to sign. That is like really key. It's got to be equal to 0 in order to do this problem. Okay, so just to kind of give you even a little heads up, if that 15 was on the other side, it was on the right hand side, you'd have to move it over. You'd have to subtract 15 to put it on that side and then factor it. Okay, so let's actually do this problem right now. I'm going to factor this just like we did back in the day. So I'm going to say, using our nice little x method, so it's going to be a 1 and a negative 15. So negative 15. And then this is negative 2. All right. And we're going to do negative 5 and 3. That should give us our numbers. Now, the nice thing about this one is like leading coefficient of 1. So all they have to do is do x minus 5 and x plus 3. Now, remember, it's equal to 0. So write equals 0. So this is to kind of explain a little bit what's going on here, guys. Do you agree that if I said 5 times 0 is 0 or 0 times 5 is 0, as long as one of the numbers is 0, the whole thing goes to 0, right? Both of them don't have to be it, just one. In fact, if I gave you a problem of 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 times 0, as long as one of the numbers is 0, the whole thing goes to 0. Okay? So what you're going to do is, once you have it in this form here, you literally set any place you see an X, so wherever, put this in a different color, wherever you see a variable, set the variable or the parenthesis, depending on if it's a parenthesis, equal to 0 and solve. Okay? So basically what I'm going to do is, I'm going to get rid of some of this other stuff here so it doesn't, we actually can do a little work on this side here. Okay, so I'm going to see x minus 5, x plus 3. I'm literally going to do x minus 5 equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0. And then I solve. So I get add 5 to both sides, so x equals 5. And this one I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides and get x equals negative 3. So math fans, this is what you're going to put in the answer blank. Okay, and the key word was solve. Now you'll know it's solve as well because of the equal sign. Okay, solve has got an equal sign. If it doesn't say solve, it'll say factor. And if you factor, that's what you're going to give me. You're going to give me x minus 5, x plus 3. So if there's no equal to sign, don't solve. It's really obvious. Solve means give me an answer of x equals 5 and x equals negative 3. Factor means give me an answer of x minus 5 times x plus 3. Okay? It's really important you guys understand that. Okay, so sometimes you are given a problem where it's already factored for you, which actually is really nice. It's like a nice little friendly gift. If I said x plus 10 times x minus 7 equals 0. Guys, this is like a gift because it's already factored for you. Please, and again, it'll say solve. Please don't FOIL this out. If you FOIL this out, you actually are going backwards and you're going to get the wrong answer because then you're going to have to factor it, and why would you do all that work? Okay, so solve in this form just means x plus 10 equals 0 and x minus 7 equals 0. So I'm going to subtract 10, x equals negative 10, and add 7 to both sides, so x equals 7. There's your two answers. Okay, so let me give you another one here that looks a little more complicated, but it's not really that complicated. So 3x times 2x plus 1 times x minus 8 equals 0. And what is it going to say? Solve. Okay, so remember I told you wherever you see a variable or a variable in a parenthesis, you set that equal to 0. So technically, math fans, I'm going to have three answers here because I'm going to set three things equal to 0. Okay, so I'm going to say 3x equals 0, 2x plus 1 equals 0, and x minus 8 equals 0. Okay, so this one is easy. Don't do anything crazy. It's literally divided by 3, so x equals 0. This one I'm going to have to subtract 1, so 2x equals negative 1. Divide by 2, x equals negative 1/2. And add 8 to both sides, so x equals 8. Okay, so you have 1, 2, 3 answers. Okay, now let me just kind of just do a little bit different problem here. Let's say I give you this, 3 times x plus 4, x minus 9 equals 0. So what's it going to say? It's going to say solve. Certainly not going to say factor. It's already factored. Why would I say factor? That'd be kind of dumb. Okay, so guys, understand it's got to have a variable. So set variables equal to 0. So here we go. You got a 3 here, you got an x plus 4, and you got an x minus 9. Notice, math fans, there's no x here. There's no variable. So I don't even do anything with it. It doesn't matter. If it had an x, it would be 3x equals 0. But there's no x there. So it's just x plus 4 equals 0 and x minus 9 equal to 0. So subtract 4, x equals negative 4, and add 9 to both sides, x equals 9. So there are your two answers. Okay? So those are the basics. It's got to have a variable in order to set it equal to 0. Okay, but again, it's going to say solve, which means I want an answer of negative 4 and 9. Okay, please don't just factor. Factor means x plus 4, x minus 9. Probably with that 3 there with it. Okay? All right, so let's, again, if it's already in parentheses like that for you, it's really nice. It's like a little gift from me to you. How nice. Okay? So let me give you a couple problems where you actually have to do a little bit of work. Okay, so here you go. Let's just do this one. X squared minus 16 equals 0. Well, you got to factor that. You guys should recognize that it's a difference of two squares. So the square root of x squared is x. The square root of 16 is 4. And remember, it's going to be x plus 4, x minus 4 equals 0. Okay, so set one of those equal to 0. So x plus 4 equals 0 and x minus 4 equals 0. Subtract 4, x equals negative 4, and add 4, x equals 4. Hey, that wasn't too bad. Okay, so let me give you another one here, really similar to that one. What if I gave you guys x cubed minus 16x equals 0? Okay, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to do greatest common factor. You got to remember that. Greatest common factor. Always first. Always, always, always. So the greatest common factor here is, in this case, is x. So I'm going to divide each of these by x. And make sure you put that on the outside. So I'm going to get x squared minus 16. Okay? And now I've got to factor that. Well, we already did that problem. That was the last example. So it's going to be x plus 4, x minus 4 equals 0. How many answers am I going to have for this problem? 3. 1, 2, 3. That one's got an x there. If that had a 3 there and no x, you'd have two answers. It would just be x plus 4 equals 0 and x minus 4 equals 0. But because there's a variable, you're going to set everything equal to 0. So x equals 0, x plus 4 equals 0, and x minus 4 equals 0. Okay? And this one's already solved. Subtract 4, x equals negative 4, and add 4, x equals positive 4. Okay, there we go. Those are your three answers. Okay, so you got to factor, greatest common factor, everything, got to do all the factoring, then you set each of those equal to 0. Okay, so let's do a couple of crazier ones. Actually, I want to point out one more thing before we go any further here. Okay, so it's a pretty basic one, but I just want to make a point here. So if I have x squared plus 4x equals 32. Okay, so big deal, guys, big deal. It's got to, I'm going to put this in bold here, it must equal 0. If you turn this one sideways, it looks like a what? Oh, sorry. Okay, but it's got to equal 0. Okay, if you do something with it equals 32, you're not going to get the right answer. Has to equal 0. They actually call this the zero product property. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, okay, so write that down someplace, guys. Must equal 0. Has to equal 0. So the first thing I'm doing is subtract 32 from both sides. So I get x squared plus 4x minus 32 equals 0. And then you factor it, okay? So we're going to do a nice little x method here. So that's going to give us negative 32. That's going to be a 4 here, and it's going to be 8 and 4. So positive 8 and negative 4. That's going to give us negative 32, and 8 minus 4 is 4, so it's perfect. And it's a leading coefficient of 1, so it's just going to be x plus 8 and x minus 4. Guys, make sure you set it equal to 0, okay? What is this? What are the directions? I didn't write the directions here, but it's going to say solve. And you know it's going to be solved because of that guy right there. It's an equal to sign. They're going to come hand in hand. Okay, you're not going to have one, what's going to say factor without an equal to sign, or it's not going to say solve unless it has the equals. It's got to have both. Okay? All right. So anyway, I set both of these equal to 0. X plus 8 equals 0. X minus 4 equals 0. And then subtract 8. X equals negative 8. And add 4. X equals 4. There we go. There's our two answers. Isn't that sweet? Okay? So it's not bad, but it's got to equal 0. Okay, so let's do some problems that's got like everything in it, right? Little greatest common factor, maybe not equal to 0, so you got to move things around. Let's just let's do everything here. Okay. Clear everything off here. All right, so here's your next problem. 2x cubed minus 4x squared equals 30x. This is the most complicated problem I could possibly give you. The most complicated. Okay, so what are the directions going to say, math fans? Solve. Solve. Now, how do you know it's a solve? Right there. Equal to sign, and it's a solve. Okay, so the very first thing you're going to do is what? Got to move everything over. It's got to be equal to 0, guys. Got to be equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 30x from both sides. So I got 2x cubed minus 4x squared minus 30x equals 0. Okay, what's our next step? Hey, greatest common factor. Well, they're all even numbers, and there's an x in each one, so I would say my GCF is 2x. So I can divide each of these by 2x. Don't forget to put that on the outside. That's one of our answers. So 2x, if I divide, I get x squared minus 2x minus 15 equals 0. Okay? And then we're going to use the x method here. So we're going to say it's negative 15 and negative 2. So what numbers give you negative 15? Negative 5 and positive 3, because that gives you a negative 2 then. Okay, so what we're going to have is, don't forget the 2x, and then you're going to have x minus 5 and x plus 3 equals 0. Okay? All right, hopefully you guys should be good with this, right? So there's a lot of steps in here, but just got to learn it. Okay? So how many answers am I going to have for this problem? I will have 3. I'll have 1, 2, 3 answers. Okay, so we do 2x equals 0, x minus 5 equals 0, and x plus 3 equals 0. This one's easy. Whenever it's just a 2x, guys, and you divide it by 2, you're always going to get 0. Okay, if it was like an x minus 5, then you got a different number. But if it's 2x, 5x, 10x, negative 18 billion x equals 0, you divide 0 by whatever number, and you're going to get 0. So x equals 0, I add 5, x equals 5, and subtract 3, x equals negative 3. So there we go. 3 answers. Okay, let's try a couple more, because you got to practice this stuff, guys. It's super important to practice this. Okay, so let's do another solve. And we'll do 2x squared plus 6x equals 20. Okay, it's the first thing you're going to do. Well, you got to solve, so we know we got to move everything over because it's got to equal to 0. So we're going to subtract 20 from both sides. So you get 2x squared plus 6x minus 20 equals 0. Okay, next thing you're going to do, greatest common factor is 2. That's it, just a 2. So we're going to divide each of these by 2. So you get 2 parentheses x squared plus 3x minus 10 equals 0. Okay, so we're going to factor that. So it's negative 10 and 3. So it's going to be positive 5 and negative 2. So that this basically is going to be 2 parentheses, and that's going to be x plus 5 and x minus 2. And that's equal to 0. Always equal to 0. Okay, how many answers am I going to have for this now, math fans? You guys should be telling me 2 answers. 1, 2. Why isn't that an answer? Has no variable. You can't. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. If you would set that equal to 0 and go 2 equals 0, I'd be like, I don't think 2 equals 0. Right? I mean, it doesn't. Don't do that. Okay. So we just have 2 answers. So you're going to do x plus 5 equals 0, x minus 2 equals 0. So add 2, x equals 2, and subtract 5 here. X equals negative 5. So you got 2 answers, negative 5 and 2. Okay? Okay. Let's do one more. Okay, you know, like I said, it's good practice. All right. So again, this is probably going to be one of the more difficult problems here. So let's do it. 3x cubed plus 48 equals negative 24x squared. And what are the directions going to say? Solve. Okay. So this looks kind of scary. Okay. I'm actually a little scared right now too. But basically what you're doing here is you got to move everything over so it equals 0. So see this negative 24x squared? I'm going to add 24x squared to both sides. Oh, and by the way, there's an x here. I'm sorry. Put an x over there. Okay, and then, so you want to put it in descending order, guys. If you write it like this, 3x cubed plus 48x plus 24x squared, you're going to cry, okay, because it's not going to be in the right order. You're going to try to do greatest common factor. It just won't look right, and you don't want to cry unless you have plenty of Kleenex handy. Okay, but don't do that. Right? You remember, put it in descending order, right? You got x cubed and then the x squared and the x. So if I add 24x squared, I get 3x cubed plus 24x squared plus 48x equals 0. All right? Now, greatest common factor. Well, it certainly is not an even number, and let's try 3, because there's a 3 here, and I know 3 goes into 24 8 times, and 3, if you divide 48 divided by 3, you actually get 16. Okay, so my greatest common factor, GCF equals 3x. Okay, so I'm going to factor out a 3x here. So I get 3x, and then I get x squared plus 8x plus 16 equals 0. Okay, so let's go ahead and factor that. So it's going to be a 16. That's going to be an 8. So what numbers give you 16? Well, 4 and 4. 4 times 4 and 4 plus 4. Hey, how you doing? That's perfect. So it's a leading coefficient of 1, so it's just going to be 3x, and then x plus 4 equals 0. Okay, so 3x equals 0, x plus 4 equals 0. Now, if you notice, guys, you got that one, you got that one. Isn't this the same one as this? I mean, you could say x plus 4 equals 0, but I don't care. Here, let's do it. X plus 4 equals 0. What you're going to do is you're going to divide by 3, so x is 0, and then you're going to subtract 4, x equals negative 4. And then here I did it again, so watch, I'm going to do x equals negative 4. So you don't want to say it twice. What's the answer? So the answer to this problem is x equals 0 and negative 4. I mean, you're not going to say negative 4 and negative 4. Okay, so there are two answers to this problem because that one is repeated. Okay, so that was kind of like the most complicated one. But remember, just to kind of refresh your brains a little bit here, if I give you guys a problem that looks like it's already solved, so 2x, x plus 5, x minus 3 equals 0. Guys, again, this is a gift. Gift from Mr. Kerfus. Okay, gift from me. How generous of me. Okay, so it's just 2x equals 0. You don't have to do anything. X plus 5 equals 0, and x minus 3 equals 0. And solve each one of those. Divide by 2, x equals 0. Subtract 5, x equals negative 5. And add 3, x equals 3. Okay, so that's like really nice. Remember, if it was just 2 parentheses, x plus 5, x minus 3, please do not set 2 equal to 0. All right, it's very sad. So you're going to actually, you just have these two answers here, the x equals negative 5 and x equals 3. Okay? And again, don't forget, the directions will say solve. Okay? And some of the problems will be like, factored out for you already, but if they're not factored, then you got to do all your other work. You got to do greatest common factor, difference of two squares, X method, whatever you need to do to factor it out, and then set it equal to 0. Okay? So I hope you guys are good to go. But you have to know this for the chapter. You got to know how to solve. It's really important. All right, my fans, that's it. Have an outstanding day. Adios. Goodbye.